President Dinstead, we have 9:30.
Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the regular board meeting for Western Municipal Water District to order and the special board meeting for the Western Municipal Water District Facilities Authority. At this time, Madam Secretary, can we go ahead and call the roll, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Pursuant to Western Municipal Water District Resolution 3209, in an effort to protect the public health, prevent the spread of COVID-19, and because state and local officials are recommending measures to promote social distancing, the public may view this board meeting online or virtually via Zoom. Masks will be required for members of the public who have not received the COVID-19 vaccination. Today's meeting is being live streamed at WMWD.com. As stated on the agenda, members of the public who wish to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the district or any item on the agenda may make comments in person, virtually via Zoom, or by submitting comments on the district's website. Comments received on the district's website before 4:30 p.m. February 15th, 2022 will be made part of the board meeting record. For those participating in the Zoom virtual meeting who wish to provide public comments, please indicate such by using the raise hand feature, and we will call on you individually. You can access the raise hand feature by opening the participant list and clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of the list. For those participating by telephone who wish to provide public comment, you may do so by pressing *6 to unmute yourself. Phone callers can also press *9 to activate the raised hand feature. If there is more than one caller, you will be identified and called on one at a time. Any public comment will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. However, the presiding officer reserves the right to reduce the amount of time you will be allowed to speak to ensure that all members of the public have an opportunity to provide their comment. I will now take roll call for the meeting. Due to the complexity of conducting this meeting by Zoom and telephonically, I will not be taking roll call for staff members or the public at this time. Director Roten.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Director Rizvi.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Director Gardner.
I am present.
Thank you. Good morning. Director Torres. Director Torres. President Dinstead.
I am present. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, President Dinstead. You do have a quorum today.
Thank you very much. And as a reminder, folks in the audience, if you have a cell phone, if you could please set that to silence or stun, it would be greatly appreciated. At this time, we'll go ahead and ask for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have someone, good morning, to lead us.
Good morning. I'm Doug McCartney. I'm a senior engineer in the CIP Engineering Department. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We so appreciate you leading us in the pledge this morning. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and move into our public comment section on the agenda. If there's any member of the public who wishes to comment on any item which is not currently posted on our agenda today and is under the jurisdiction of this agency to do anything about and act upon, we will take those public comments at this time. Madam Secretary, is there anyone in our audience who wishes to speak under public comment?
President Dinstead, I've received no requests to speak. I see no raised hands on Zoom, and I've received no written comments for this board meeting. At this time, if there's anybody on Zoom who would like to make a public comment, you may show a raised hand or do it the old-fashioned way. I see and hear none.
Thank you very much. We'll move on from public comment and move into our presentations today. We have our Federal Affairs group here to report. Mr. Miller, would you like to introduce our guests that are here to give a report?
I would be happy to. I think you just did, but I'll build on that a little bit. We're very fortunate to have our federal lobbyist here today in person, which is great to see people in person. We've been doing a lot of virtual work, and they've been joining our communications and government relations meetings via Zoom for some time, so it's great to see you guys. Mark Limbaugh and Chris Kearney from the Ferguson Group, they're going to give us, they annually come in and give us kind of a roundup of what's been happening, and they use their crystal ball to tell us exactly what's going to happen in the next year back in DC. So we're anxious to find out how that's going to go, because it seems chaotic back there, but I know you
No
know
pressure,
what's going on.
Yeah, and Mark looks so excited about that.
No pressure, thank you.
So Mark, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for being here
Thank you,
this morning.
Craig. Thank you, President Denstead and members of the board. Very much a pleasure for Chris Kearney and I to be here today in person. Nice to see you all, as not a flat screen, but in person, 3D. So we'll go ahead and start. First slide, please. I did include a list of acronyms because we started doing that a couple of years ago. We had a request, and so you can use these, hang them up on the wall, whatever you want to do. But it is we deal with a lot of acronyms in DC, and so these are kind of the layman's terms of what we're talking about. Next slide. Again, our list keeps getting longer, so bear with me. Next slide. Just an go ahead. Yeah, well, that's another story. Our current overview today, we're going to talk a little bit about the appropriations process. As you know, the Congress has to approve appropriations every year for the agencies to run, and a lot of the interest that we have is in those grant programs that we've been working with you on. We'll also talk a little bit about COVID-19 funding, the ARPA funding, the state has received and some communities have received. Infrastructure bill, as you know, we have a new infrastructure bill, bipartisan in nature, and certainly we'll go through kind of what money's out there. And then we'll talk a little bit about Western water legislation coming up, Water Resource Development Act with the core, the grants programs we've been working with you on, an update on PFAS, and then looking ahead, the agenda for next year, and then we can talk about questions. Next slide. So talking about the appropriations for FY22, as you know, we're under a continuing resolution right now, temporarily funding the government, and that was extended through March 11th recently. We have found out that negotiations have been successful on getting to an omnibus bill. They're putting that together now. There's still a few details to work out, but there is a will to get that done, and hopefully by March 11th, if not a few days after. The one thing that's in the bill are earmarks. The first time in 10 years that Congress has taken the reins back from the spending reins and actually have put community projects into the budget. And so we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. The additional funding for Bureau of Reclamation, which is the water agency that we work with quite a bit on Water Smart and those kinds of things, they have extra money in both the House and Senate versions of the Energy and Water Development Appropriations Bill, and certainly we're going to take advantage of that once those monies come to fruition in an appropriation. Next slide. Talked a little bit about the earmarks, community project spending. Western was successful in getting one of the earmarks in the Senate bill, which we are projecting that both the Senate and House earmarks that were approved in those bills will actually be approved in conference once the omnibus hits. So we're watching that pretty closely. It's a $3 million earmark for the PFAS treatment plant at the Western Water Recycling Facility. And that's in the Senate Interior Environment Appropriations under the State and Tribal Assistance Grants, or STAG grants. We also applied for the MARB Water and Sewer Resiliency Project. It was not chosen for an earmark. It was quite a little bit larger, and the earmarks this year were a little bit smaller than what we were wanting to do with that project, but there's good news on that project that we'll go through here in a minute. As far as the FY23 process, typically the president has to provide his budget by the first Monday in February. That deadline has not been met for the last couple of years. Certainly with the new administration coming in, it takes a while for them to get the reins of the budget process. And so we're looking for their budget to come out right after the President's State of the Union address on March 1. And so we'll hopefully see kind of where the priorities are going to be with the Biden administration for the programs that we're interested in. Next slide. In terms of water infrastructure, we've obviously been working with Western's priorities for 2021 for the California Delta Conveyance modernization. That seems to be just kind of trudging along. As I said, the community development spending, we applied for some earmarks there, and we did get one. WaterSmart grants, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but we have been meeting with your staff regularly and your grants folks, and I tell you, you guys got a top-notch team looking at these grants and really getting the grants that your projects so deserve. So WaterSmart, the Department of Defense, both of those were on our radar this year, and I think we have good news to report there. We also are working with you on this Upper Santa Ana HCP, the ARPA funding, we'll go through that in a minute, PFAS, and then we did have some virtual meetings in March with your delegation with the administration of March of last year, and we're certainly looking forward to doing that again this year. Next slide. The COVID-19 relief funds, we worked with your folks to send letters and try to put Western's position out there on the use of the low-income household water assistance program, which got significant funding in the ARPA funding. We also were working on trying to direct and help the emergency rental and utility assistance to actually move to the water sector, not just the electric sector. So we have been, I think, successful in getting your voices heard with the delegation and with the administration on getting that money funding out. But as you can see, many billions of dollars have flowed out for the COVID relief. The state is still parsing that money out, and certainly some of the programs that were developed, we're hoping that they'll continue, especially on the low-income side with the arrears that we experienced with the COVID-19 issues that we had. Next slide. In December, the Congress passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021. It's $1.2 trillion over 5 years. The Bureau of Reclamation got $8.3 billion of that. A large chunk of that is gone into the WaterSmart program. And so we're going to be looking at significant funding coming out, funding opportunity announcements coming out shortly for some of the WaterSmart programs that are out there that you have participated in the past. Army Corps got $17 billion. Interior, Fish and Wildlife for wildfire got $3.4 billion. USDA $918 million for their watershed programs. Interior, Commerce and Fish and Wildlife got $3 billion. And the biggest thing, I think, is the SRF funding, which is significantly higher than what the annual appropriations provide. And that was the drinking water got $17.3 billion and the clean water $19.9 billion. So those are large influxes of money that are going to the SRFs over the next 5 years. That's certainly something to consider. And one of the caveats in that is 49%, I believe, of those loans need to be forgivable loans. So they're looking at environmental justice, disadvantaged communities, dealing with some of the things that need to be looked at from the public perspective as being priorities in this administration and Congress. Next slide. The Bureau of Reclamation, we participated in the stakeholder briefings and the Q&As. As I said, WaterSmart got a $400 million funding boost over 5 years. The administration and Reclamation has announced that they're going to put $160 million of that on the street this year. So we'll see what that looks like here in the future. And then $1 billion for Title 16 reuse and recycling. And of that, there's a new program for $450 million for large recycling. In other words, projects that cost over $500 million. And I think that project is in Southern California and certainly could be impactful to Western. Yeah, it's the only one. Yeah, it's an earmark, but not an earmark. There's also a new water storage projects. There's a $1 billion for WIN Act projects that are currently in the pipeline or would be in the pipeline. As you may know, the WIN Act has expired, but this actually extends it for projects that are in the pipeline, and then it also puts more money into it. Congress has been very interested in putting funding into the WIN Act projects and water storage, water and groundwater storage. We look for that to actually be renewed in some way, shape, or form this year in some of the Western water legislation that we'll go over here in a minute. But $100 million was put into a new small surface and groundwater storage program. That's a 25% grant for small storage. Right now it's for projects that are between 2,000 acre feet and 30,000 acre feet. One of the things that got by us when we were trying to work this up is with Congress, because we were involved in the writing of this, the 2,000 acre feet got away from us because that's a fairly large small storage. And what we want to do in some of the legislation this year is drop that down to like 2 acre feet so that we can have re-reg reservoirs and water storage facilities that are meaningful, but the 2,000 is hard to meet. And in groundwater storage, I think that's important too, because we do have that in this area as well. And then the CR, the first CR, the continuing resolution that funded the government in September of last year for the first tranche of funding, the Bureau of Reclamation got $200 million for drought relief. And a lot of that money has been spent. There's a spending plan out that was announced last December, but about $35 million has been held back for this year. And so they're looking at ways to use that money. As you know, we're not looking that great right now with snowpack. So we're hopeful that that money will be useful and in meeting some of those needs. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Chris now to finish up our presentation today, and we'll talk a little bit about PFAS. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everyone. And I share Mark's view and everyone here that it's nice to see people face to face. And I actually looked forward to getting on a plane yesterday, which is not something I've been able to say in a long, long time. So on the issue of PFAS, is critically important in this area and elsewhere. And there have been a couple of things going on. Congress has been busy, but the agencies have actually been busier. H.R. 2467, the Pfas Action Act, is a bipartisan piece of legislation which has as its centerpiece classifying PFAS as hazardous under the Superfund law. It has a number of other provisions in it, but it does not, but that's its kind of headline. It does not have an exemption for wastewater treatment facilities, for example, that might be touched by discharges from sites that would be classified under Superfund. So that's one of the main reasons we're keenly interested of it from your perspective. It's been introduced and passed the House in 2 successive Congresses, led by Fred Upton, Republican from Michigan, and Debbie Dingell from Michigan, spurred on by a number of the issues that they have in the communities that are quite well known in Michigan and elsewhere. It has been stymied in the Senate, primarily due to concerns about that classification of hazardous under Superfund and what that means for a whole host of communities and a whole host of industries. There is, as recently as last week, an effort being led by the senator from the Environment and Public Works Committee, which is the Senate committee that has jurisdiction over these issues, Mr. Carper from Delaware. He has directed his staff to see if there is a path forward for bipartisanship. What that means and what that looks like and what kind of classifications, we're a long way from that. But those conversations are actively underway, and Senator Carper is among kind of the last of the old school good faith, let's put our partisan differences aside and get something done. So if Senator Carper is involved, I think there's a real opportunity there. And the ranking Republican, the senior Republican, Senator Capito from West Virginia, has a very good working relationship with him. So we will stay close to those conversations and see where they go. My own sense is it will be a challenge to do something in the time left in the schedule with the election year. But you never know what might happen, and it's also good groundwork for the next Congress as well. There are other bills in the House and the Senate related to PFAS that we've been in touch with your staff on, but they're mostly about funding related or various different classifications, that sort of thing, but they are well below the kind of headline and likelihood of advancement of 2467. On the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, which is obviously focuses on funding authorization levels for defense-related matters, and therefore MARB and the rest comes into play there. Two headlines, if you will, out of the bill that was signed by the President on December 27th. My friends in the Defense Committee would want you to know that that is now the 45th consecutive NDAA bill that's been actually passed on time in the Congress, so they're very proud of that bipartisan effort. Two things there. One, in the next over the next three fiscal years through 2024, the Defense Department has to come up with a comprehensive testing plan for PFAS for all major military installations, existing and past, in the United States. By February 27th of this year, they have to have provided a status report on their plans for the 50 priority facilities for cleanup, both current and past. MARB is not on the list, but it is likelihood that drinking water impacts from PFAS at those facilities is the primary criteria in terms of prioritization. So certainly there'll be some attention. Just for your edification, Travis, Edwards, Vandenberg are among the 5 Air Force bases and military installations in California that are on that list of 50. There also is a temporary ban on incineration of any PFAS-related materials on military bases immediately. That's something that has been a longstanding interest of others. There's also going to be a requirement of public transparency, a requirement of public providing of the information related to the inventory of this different testing. And then over at EPA, they are going to be very busy this year. When Administrator Regan came in, he is the former head of the state equivalent of EPA in North Carolina. So he is keenly aware of the importance of PFAS. So he brought a team together. He's crafted something known as the Pfas Council. They've put together what's a strategic roadmap to bring everything together in terms of what different activities they're doing. The 3 most important ones for us to know are there are 3 separate regulatory actions expected this year out of EPA involving PFAS. The first and most immediate one is we expect in the next 30 to 45 days to be on the street a draft rule that would have PFAS and PFOA at least be classified as hazardous under Superfund. The goal is to finalize that by the end of this year, that rule. There is also expected to be a rule regarding the Toxic Substances Inventory Act, TSCA, or Toxic Inventory Control Act, and that is essentially for where manufacturing has to provide an inventory of materials that they either produce or use that involve PFAS. There is also expected to be a rule sometime this year on setting of a federal drinking water standard for PFAS levels. There's currently nothing on the books there. That's an issue of great concern and great attention to a lot of folks. And then finally, in the area of monitoring and research, as you know, there's a category of roughly 5,000 different elements under PFAS. PFOA are the 2 that we normally hear most about. That monitoring and research is digging into what are the next serious tiers of PFAS chemicals that we have to be concerned with. Next slide, please. 2 victories. We've alluded to this earlier. One was out of the Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program. This DCIP, this is really quite a victory. This is only the 2nd year this program has existed. Our congressional delegation has been very active in support, in writing letters to the Defense Department. We were not successful the first time around, learned from it, came back, and as you can see, awarded a $4.3 million award, which is quite a bit because they only had about $50 million in their total pot. And so we continue to work on that. And then, of course, with WaterSmart, we continue to be successful there, as you can see, with the $70,000 for the small-scale water efficiency grants. The WaterSmart program is really being amplified with funding, as we've talked about, and so it really is, I think, an area where we're going to have some real successes going forward as it is a bipartisanly popular program that has gotten traction across the political spectrum and across Congress and the agencies. So we expect that program to continue to be a good source of funding. Next slide, please. This gives you a quick idea of kind of who the senior leadership that's filled in the positions for the Biden-Harris administration. I think it's fair to say between Mark and I, with the exception of the secretary, We have a long-standing personal relationship with everybody on this list. We find them to be among the most consummate professionals that the administration has chosen. Frankly, I think it's fair to say when you look at this list, from our experience, you could not ask for folks who are better understanding institutionally of how to manage up and how to manage down within agencies, how to deal across party lines, and be bipartisan. The country is exceptionally grateful, or should be exceptionally grateful that a number of these folks stepped out of positions that they didn't have to come back to them. So we're really excited about the prospects of that work and with them going forward in the next few years. Next slide, please. And this, just quickly, you can see pretty much summarizes a continuation of what we've worked on in '21, building on the successes that we've had to date. I think our view is that it's through the good work of you all and your staffs and the work we've done to this point, there's an incredibly good foundation of success to work on and to work for. And going into this year and beyond, we're really excited about the prospects and the opportunities that are facing us. Next slide. That's it.
So, Madam President, we'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We certainly appreciate you giving us this very thorough update on everything that's going on. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Questions from my colleagues on the dais?
I have one question. So you were talking about that we might not have, for some, I think it was HR 2460, we might not, 67. We might not have time to pass this during this election cycle. What happens? It starts all over again after?
Yes. So they would what would happen is if we're not successful in passing something like that next Congress, so it's 2 calendar years makes the Congress, they'll just reintroduce that and come back next year. The one thing I would add is that, and you raise an important point, I think it is the hope of some of the folks, particularly in the Senate, that because the House has been where they've kind of moved and then died, my sense is that there's a hope that if they can reach some sort of accommodation over discussions this year, let's say something doesn't happen, that perhaps next year they could introduce a bill in both the House and the Senate that would reflect those discussions and increase the likelihood of advancing of success. Because what they've seen is what's happened to this point, you get the House passes the bill, the Senate folks fold their arms, and then because of the way the rules are, they die, and that's not very productive. So I think the hope would be that if they weren't successful this year, they'd build on the discussions in whatever bill is introduced next year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
Not so much a question, but a comment specifically on that. I'm really glad to see you focusing on kind of the long term and the way Congress and an administration work or don't work together. It can be a very slow process, and many people don't recognize that, and they kind of expect things to happen very quickly and to happen their way, and that often doesn't happen. So I'm glad to see you looking toward next year if we don't get something this year, and getting people, or doing your best to get people to work together to accomplish what really is good for everyone. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, just thank you so much for being here.
Okay, a couple of questions. So, CARES Act, coronavirus hasn't gone away. Magically today turned into a change in mask mandates and a variety of different things, but are we seeing that DC is going to stay in this stream of, well, COVID's kind of here, but now we're dealing with it, and they're not going to fund any more types of things going forward as far as the CARES Act was concerned and all of the COVID relief funds that were out there and a variety of different challenges? I mean, what are you guys seeing that is coming out of DC in terms of that?
Well, I can start. Chris certainly can add to this. We have heard that the Biden administration is going to propose about a $60 billion COVID relief package to the Congress in supplemental spending. I believe a lot of that is geared towards restaurants and businesses that have really suffered from this, to try to get them back on their feet. But the Build Back Better Act had some additional funding for social programs and for some more infrastructure in that. And we don't see that moving at this point. Senator Manchin from West Virginia has been a stickler on that. And the Democrats in the reconciliation process, as you recall, maybe from some of our reports, that it only takes a 51 vote majority to pass the budget reconciliation. That's the vehicle they were using in the Senate. The House passed a $1.7 trillion bill that didn't go anywhere in the Senate because they don't have all of the Democrat votes. They need them all in order to pass that because the Republicans are all against it. So we're looking at that, maybe coming back in terms of some a little bit here, a little bit there. $60 billion is a lot of money, but it's a little bit compared to the $1 trillion stuff that we've been hearing about. One of the things I think is important to remember is the inflation numbers are really staggering a lot of this spending, and I think you're going to see a lot of pushback not only from the Republicans but from some of the moderate Dems as well in the Senate. Chris, do you have any?
The one thing I would add is there's a heck of a lot of money that hasn't been spent yet.
Okay.
And I think that is a focus on getting there, even related to testing and a variety of other things. And so there is certainly a push on the Republican side to make sure that all that money has been spent first. And I think they're joined by a number of Democrats. So I think that part of the effort is going to be let's make sure we're spending everything that we've got before they even, beyond the part that Mark's talking about, before they go back. So there's still a lot of money to be spent yet.
Okay, great. Yeah, because as we get all these folks back up on their feet and businesses start to begin to operate, I guess we come into play because they want to have water to their businesses, and construction starts back up, and then that's a focus of us as well. So we want to make sure that that's all on our radar if that's the direction that we need to go. I want to take a moment, too, and focus on what you folks have done for us for a number of years and the number of funding opportunities that we've received and how successful we've been at grants and the money that has come into this district because of your efforts in D.C. And I really want to thank you guys for putting water on the map as part of a COVID issue. People weren't just having their lights turned off. Water is essential. You can live without the electricity. You can't go so far without the water. So I really want to take this opportunity to really focus on what you guys did back there in DC to ring the bell and make sure that the water community was really heard in joining those efforts to be very successful at bringing that dollar amount back to California. So kudos to you guys for all of your efforts.
Well, thanks, but it's a two-way street. You guys have invested in some very capable staff and management, and of course your board. Being who you are and having the credibility you have, that's really the lion's share of your success. And so we're just an extension of your staff here, but we appreciate the fact that you do have a great, an outstanding federal affairs approach, and you're starting to see the fruits of those labors. So thank you.
Absolutely, and you are 100% correct, Mark. I thank you because staff, you guys team up with our staff very well, and staff does a bang-up job of making sure that we are in the forefront of putting in these applications and getting everything done so that our customers are taken care of. So appreciate you guys coming out and joining us today. It's so nice to see you in person and not on a flat screen. I am so over Zoom. So, and we hope, it was a little cold this morning, but the weather has been pretty nice. It looks forward to, warming up a little bit at the end of the week, right? So, they probably didn't think it was cold. We're dying, it's like 30-something degrees this morning, and I'm like,
I really like it.
right? Right? Brenda, don't complain about the weather. So, yeah, you guys have got, snow and sleet and stuff going on back there, and you're
The winter.
walking out there in your suits without overcoats. So, absolutely. So, enjoy the weather. Thanks for coming and joining us out here in California. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark and Chris. Great report. And, I just want to share with the board, Director Denstadt, those were very appropriate comments. They are great teammates, but I want to emphasize how much they are in the weeds working with our team. We do have a great staff. Michael and Melissa do a fabulous job, but Mark and Chris are right there editing documents and, giving us that little push to find other funding opportunities. So it really is a collaborative relationship that, as you can tell by the money that we've been landing, is all to the benefit of our customers. So it's really working out well.
No, absolutely, and your relationships that you've built have really paid off. So it is about the relationships, it's about your reputation, absolutely. So thank you for that. Okay, moving on. Through our agenda today, we are on to consent calendar. Is there any member of the board who wishes to pull any item off of consent? Any member of the public wishing to make a comment on any consent calendar item?
I see no request to speak.
Okay, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion
I'll second.
Is that a motion to approve?
to approve. I make a motion to approve
Just
the
that's what I
consent
seconded.
calendar.
just wanted to clarify. Was that a second to approve?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other comments, we'll go ahead and call for the vote, please. Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Dinstedt?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, moving on to items to be added to our agenda today. Legal counsel, anything to add to our agenda today?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, anything to add to our agenda today?
Nothing to add today.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our action agenda for today. On 8A, legal counsel, I believe this is the continuation of our public hearing for the redistricting.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, I believe we have a PowerPoint presentation for this. If we could pull that up real quickly. So as you've indicated, the item before you is a continued public hearing with regard to the redistricting that our agency and others in California and throughout the nation are doing right now. If we could go to the next slide real quickly. We'll first review the process very briefly. We'll review the map option E and then make a recommendation that the board adopt resolution 3210. Next slide, please. So as the board is aware, every 10 years, because we have our board members elected by division, we need to use the updated census data in order to make sure that the various divisions are equally divided throughout the district. And so we started this process back in December, actually before using the census data. In early December, we released some draft maps to the public by putting them on the district's website. In December, we also held a public hearing. That was on December 15th. We held that in the evening to allow for adequate public participation. We kind of identified some of the terms of art in terms of communities of interest, secondary areas, neighborhoods, census tracts, and whatnot. We also received some input from the board in terms of some important communities of interest that the board would like to keep intact, namely City of Norco, keeping that intact, Temescal Valley Water District intact, as well as Home Gardens. And so you'll see in map option E, those communities of interest have been kept intact. We held another public hearing on February 2nd, again in the evening, to allow for public participation. At that time, we brought back a few other maps based on the direction from the board, and that included option E. The board actually settled on map option E, but we're bringing back for the board's consideration the actual resolution, which is the vehicle that we use to adopt map E. Next slide. So this is map option E. We have some census data on the next slide, but I'll kind of identify some of the key components of this option. From a legal perspective, this option maintains the total deviation within the acceptable range of 10% or less. It also keeps Norco and Temescal Valley Water District intact. It keeps Home Gardens intact. Division 4 remains unchanged. Division 1 closely resembles the existing boundaries. And also from a California Voting Rights Act perspective, Division 1 is preserved as a majority-minority Hispanic district. And from kind of an on-the-ground perspective, Division 5 grows from 7 retail connections in the existing map to 1,665. Next slide. So this is the census data that we've used to draw these maps. Next slide. I've just gone over some of the key components of map option E. Next slide. And so staff would recommend that the board adopt Resolution 3210. This resolution identifies that the board has conducted the 2 public hearings in accordance with state law. It identifies that on February 2nd, the board unanimously selected map option E as the preferred map, and it directs the general manager to take implementing steps to administer the preferred map. So therefore, it's recommended that the board of directors adopt Resolution 3210, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and take public comment at this time. Madam Secretary, is there anyone who wishes to comment on this item?
President Dinstedt, I see no requests to speak at this time. There are no members in the audience, and I received no written comments.
Thank you very much. We will go ahead and close public comment and bring up anything, any questions, any comments from my colleagues.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion, if I could, that the board adopt Resolution 3210 with all of the language that is contained therein. And I would just point out that while this is still our 2nd public hearing, it is our 3rd meeting. So the public has had 3 physical opportunities to give us input, express any concerns, or any support that they might have. So I think we've done a good job of trying to involve those that we represent in this process. We did, in terms of meetings, more than was required.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve and adopt.
Second, but I do have a comment. Can I give it now? Or?
Yes.
I did bring up a couple of questions at the last board meeting. First of which is how quickly is this implemented? Like tomorrow I have a new district, or is there a process that goes through the county, like state? Thank you.
We're required to get the map over to the county by middle of April, which we'll certainly be able to do based on the speed with which it was adopted. In terms of public outreach, we're certainly able to do that. It's really not effective until this upcoming election. So it doesn't have any practical effect until really the nomination period and pulling of papers, which happens in the summertime. So depending on what the board wants to do, I suppose staff could take other actions.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I mean, that makes a little bit more sense than I was thinking. People are about to have different representatives. They should be informed. But if it doesn't take effect until that happens, that's a different issue.
From a practical perspective, yes.
Okay. And then my second stance.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Okay, go ahead and call for the vote.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Aye.
President Dinstedt?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 8B.
All right, thank you, Madam President. 8B is the award of a construction contract to Dyke Corporation for some pipeline replacement work. So this went through our engineering committee, but Derek will give us a verbal summary of this program.
Good morning, Derek.
Good morning. Good morning, directors. This item is part of our pipeline replacement project. This group consists of aged pipelines that have required repeated spot repairs due to leaks. They are within Mountain Court, Morning Sun Court, Meadow Mist Court, Blue Haven Court, and Lake Point Drive. The locations of these pipelines are within the Lake Hills area, Division 2. Staff advised the project publicly, advertised the project publicly in December of 2021. 12 bids were received, ranging in construction cost from $965,467 to $1,655,875. The engineer's estimate was $1,183,350. I note that this is the first sign for Western projects that I have seen in the bidding climate returning to competitive without the excessive increases of over 20% that we've been seeing in the past. Dyke Corporation submitted the lowest responsive bid. Staff are requesting that the board award the construction contract for the listed pipeline replacements for specification W298 for a cost of $965,467. Staff also request approval of a project budget of $1.7 million. We have on the line, representing the Dyke Corporation, April Vernerilli, I would ask if April does have anyone else she wants to call on that she introduce them as well.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is April Veneri, and our project manager, Matt Green, is also with me as well.
Great, thank you, April. So this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and certainly April is available, April and Matt are available for answering any questions as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions?
I have one question, Derek. I know it was presented in engineering. I just wanted to, have the public know. So what is the criteria? We had 12 bids. I saw like lowest and, such a large difference between the lowest and the highest. So I wanted to know how do you guys decide of what is the best way?
Sure, that's a good question. So in terms of a public bid, so this is under the Public Works Act, which requires there's certain requirements for that. We have a specification that we put together, and if the bids are responsive to that, in other words, that they have basically bid all of the items that are in there, the whole specification's been read, they sign off that they've done that, they know what's in the package, then it's considered to be responsive. Once you have a list of responsive people, then you have to look through the list and see who is the lowest bidder. So really, it's strictly a low bid, but they do have to meet that minimal requirement of responsiveness. And pretty much our hands are tied as far as bidding, awarding to the low bidder. There are some exceptions. For instance, if there is an error or something is amiss in the bid, then we would actually have to remove the lowest apparent bidder, but there's a hearing associated with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions?
I just want to say great job, and that I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve in a second. However, Madam Secretary, is there any public comment on this item?
I see none.
Okay, thank you. And is there a comment from Dyke Incorporation?
Yeah, no, we are excited. Kind of to add a little bit to the question about that, as far as maybe concern about the difference in price as far as lowest to highest. I believe there were several that were pretty close to ours as well. So I think it just really depends where other companies are at. They might actually have several jobs going. So in anticipation of getting this job, they might have to spend extra funds to be able to get this project done. And so we felt really good about our price, really due to the fact that you guys as a district provided a very thorough and complete project as far as plans and specifications. So it's one of the better ones that we've ever really bid, to be honest with you. So we're excited and look forward to working with everyone.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that because I love hearing that, so we don't have any change orders either.
All right.
So that makes me smile.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here today and attending our meeting and being responsive to questions when they're asked. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments from? Okay, I have a motion to approve and a second. Madam Secretary, we'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Yes.
President Instead?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to you folks. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, us too.
Okay, moving on to 8C.
All right, item 8C is for the board to consider the adoption of Resolution 3208, approving a water supply assessment for the Meridian West Upper Plateau project. So Mallory Gandara is here. She presented this again to the engineering committee, but she will do that presentation for the board here today. Mallory, all you.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, directors and staff and guests. Yes, I did this presentation at EOWR, but I'll give a brief overview again. And I also want to let you know that we do have Adam Collier here. He is from Lewis Retail Centers, and he's the developer for the project. So if there's questions, he can answer those for you at the end. Next slide, please. And again, just where this project is located, it's located right behind the Meridian office. Behind that Burlington factory as well. It's that whole area encompassing the vacant space, and it goes all the way back into the Orange Crest community where you see those kind of tract home areas. It goes all the way back there. Next slide, please. And this is a little bit of a clearer map where it shows what kind of land use there will be on the property. It's a 800-acre property in area, but the project that will be using water is only about 360 acres, and they're developable area, and it'll include business parks, industrial, there's some open space and some trails. And then about 450 of those acres is that light green area, again, that open space conservation area that won't be receiving any water or doesn't have any water demands. Next slide, please. And again, just the project description where it's at, behind Meridian's office and the total project area. But the estimated total water demand is 382, 0.47 acre feet per year, which includes both indoor and landscape demand. And the indoor demand is based on about 2,600 employees that are expected to be there at any given time. And then the outdoor is based on about 4.7 million square feet of landscaping, which is comprised of mostly low water use shrubs, but some turf area. Now, I recall in the EOWR, we did talk about the recycled water component of that. It was determined that we worked with development services and engineering that the project can receive recycled water. However, there are some on-site specific challenges with elevation and things like that. So those conversations will be forthcoming with Western staff and the developer to figure out the best solution. But to be conservative for this WSA, the analysis that was completed, we did decide to base it on if it would be using entirely potable water in the unlikely instance that the project cannot be connected to the recycled water system in the future. There was a request from EOWR about project timeline and where we're at once this WSA moves forward. So I did get some information that the target date for the draft EIR to be circulated is in May or June of this year of 2022. And then an approval of the specific plan and the draft EIR is expected in the fourth quarter of 2022. And then after permitting is completed and there's a lot of grading that needs to be done, so breaking ground maybe mid-2023 is expected at this point, with construction completed sometime in 2024. Next slide, please. And here we show one of the three scenarios that we do in the WSA. And this is what we call kind of the worst case scenario in the sense that it is a multiple dry year hydrology. And we estimate or we assume that there's a 20% reduction in NWD allocation. And we show this because we want to show that even in the most kind of, in one of the most extreme scenarios that we still have water to supply the project and all of our existing and planned future uses. Next slide, please. And so staff requests that the board approve Resolution 3208, adopting the water supply assessment. And next slide, please. And I can answer any questions, and Adam is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mallory. We're ready to take any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions of my colleagues?
We had question in the engineering committee and we're good.
Okay.
Move to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve in a second. However, I'm going to ask if there is any public comment on this item.
We have none.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just to confirm, that was a motion by Director Torres?
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct. Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Yes.
President Dinstedt?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving down our action agenda today for 8D.
Item 8D is the approval of a joint community facilities agreement between Riverside Unified School District, Vistra Emerald LLC, and Western Municipal Water District. Again, this went to the engineering committee, and Derek will do a presentation for the board today.
Great, thank you. So this is for track number 38904. It's a CFD, Community Facilities District. And Riverside Unified School District will be setting up this CFD. In this case, the developer plans to join in the CFD in order to finance the cost of Western's capacity charges. This developer is Vista Emerald LLC, and they are building 96 houses off Cremeria Avenue and Wood Road in Riverside. This is again in Division 2. They plan to finance $2,073,952 of Western's water and sewer capacity charges. The school district will finance $2,078,952. The balance of the total proposed bond issuance under the CFD will be approximately $5,610,000, though this amount could change depending on the market conditions at the time of bond sale. Western staff is seeking board approval to authorize the general manager to execute the agreement entitled Community Facilities District Number 39 Agreement between Riverside Unified School District, Vista Emerald LLC, and Western Municipal Water District. I note that we have on the line representing the developer, Rachel Chang of Fieldman and Rollup and Associates. And certainly I would invite Rachel to name any other folks who are representing the developer on this. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anyone?
No, but I move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion to approve and a second. Madam Secretary, is there anyone who wishes to comment publicly on this item?
I see no request to speak.
Okay. Any comments from the developer?
John Zimmerman.
I don't see the developer online.
Okay, thank you very much. Hearing none further, we'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Just to clarify, I do see the name of the developer online. We can't hear him, but they are here. I see Mr. Zimmerman
Oh, Mr. Zimmerman.
on the Zoom list.
And I see Brett Crowder as well.
Maybe we're having some technical
We
difficulties,
could be.
but they're listening.
Okay. Do we want to check on technical difficulties first before we proceed?
Would Mr. Zimmerman
I
or
don't hear
Mr.
anything,
Crowder?
so-
Can somebody hear me now?
There you
There we
go.
go.
Yeah, there we go. Mr.
Okay,
Zimmerman.
No comments from the developer team, other than we appreciate staff we're working on this agreement and supporting the project. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Staff and the
much.
board, that is, yep, thank you.
Appreciate those comments. Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further comments, we'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Thank you. Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Yes.
President Dinstead?
And I'm going to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The motion carries 4-1 with Director Dinstead abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you, directors.
Moving on to 8E.
All right, item 8E, Derek's going to stay up there because he's going to do a report on this also. This is consider the approval of an agreement with Riverside Inland Development LLC regarding the participation in sewer facilities, dedication of property, and water capacity purchase pricing for properties located within the March East area for water service. This has been to the engineering committee a couple times, and hopefully we're ready to finalize this. So Derek?
Great, yes, and I'm happy to report that we are ready to finalize this as we're presenting this to the board. You should see in your packet that we've attached the agreement, which we've had the developer sign on their side. We're seeking authorization for the general manager to sign the agreement. I will give a presentation on this one. I apologize, it's a little bit long, but I wanted to put it onto the public record for understanding the details of the agreement. This agreement is associated with a development that's situated on the east side of the I-215 freeway, just south of the March Air Reserve Museum. This agreement accomplishes three things. One, it sets the participation in the eastern interconnection and associated water supply capacity costs for this development. Two, it allows Western to participate in a sewer undercrossing that's under the freeway and the railroad, and we see this as an opportunity to repair a sewer force main that we've had that requires attention, and we're going to go in with this developer on putting in their sewer as well as our sewer. And three, it resolves dedication of property for the Paris Valley Pipeline Turnout. I know this is apart and separate from the Eastern Interconnection. This is a direct connection to Metropolitan that will occur sometime in the future. The project water flows require more flow that can be provided from the existing 12-inch pipeline that feeds the Air Museum. Again, this is just to the south of the Air Museum. Therefore, the project developer, known as Hillwood, has proposed to tunnel under the freeway and railroad in order to put in a water pipeline connection to Western system on the west side of the freeway. This is apart and separate from the sewer undercrossing I was referring to. That pipeline on the west side is a 10-inch pipeline, so the flows are expected to be about 37% from the west and 63% from the east. This is important because the new development on the east side of the freeway is required to pay for their share of the cost to bind to Eastern system for that intertie. Hillwood has proposed to also construct a tunnel under the freeway to connect their development to the sewer system on the west side of the freeway. Western has a force main that passes past the D2 development that is currently not in service. Staff see this as an opportunity to participate with Hillwood's work to construct the sewer under the freeway and to bring the force main back into service. Hillwood was conditioned in their project approval, that's from the March GPA, to set aside 1 acre of land for the future Paris Valley Pipeline turnout. This is a turnout where we put in a meter facility and the associated appurtenances for getting water from Metropolitan. Staff is proposing an agreement to resolve all of these issues for the project regarding the project's share of cost and the Eastern capacity buy-in. The agreement proposes that Hillwood have a charge of $3,420,160 per CFS. However, if Western receives the grant of $4,329,268 from the Department of Defense Office of Local Defense Community Corporation, that it believes it will, the agreement proposes to charge Hillwood $2,222,112 per CFS. Now, that's It's a little complicated, but basically, it's just setting the price at which they would be purchasing capacity in the eastern system. Now, Hillwood believes that the flow to the project from the intertie will not be over CFS. In fact, the agreement states that the flow will be approximately 0.23 CFS, or about 105 gallons per minute. The agreement further describes how the actual flows will be measured after the meters are placed. Once the actual flow capacities from the intertie is determined, the costs will be reconciled. The agreement includes a credit of $614,871 for Western's portion of the construction cost plus soft cost for the 10-inch sewer under the freeway. That's that participation I referred to. If, after the measurement is done regarding their water supply, it is determined that the flow from the intertie for the project is actually over the 0.23 CFS, Hillwood will owe Western money. If the flow is less than 0.23 CFS, Western will owe Hillwood money, and a partial refund of the approximate $615,000 credit. Note that it is estimated in 2018, the cost for Western to do this alone would cost about $1 million. Thus, we are achieving economies of scale by sharing the cost with Hillwood. Finally, the agreement resolves the project condition to set aside property for the Paris Valley Pipeline Turnout. This condition is, again, for 1 acre, and they've proposed to set aside a half of an acre. That's based on the layout of how they've done for the ultimate development. So this agreement will resolve that, the fact that it's not a half acre as conditioned, a full acre as conditioned, and we could accept the half acre. Staff has done layouts. We believe we can fit the turnout in there. We've talked with Met, and we've determined that it would fit on there, and we do believe we'd have additional room for even putting a pump station. Depending on the final design of that pump station, we might have to purchase some other property, but nevertheless, that set aside was just for the turnout. It does require, the agreement does require that within 120 days, you might recall during the engineering committee, I discussed this, within 120 days, they do have to have that property transfer take place in order for us to cooperate in removing that condition. If it goes past 120 days, then we would have to resolve it in some other manner and maybe be back in front of the board. It's my hope that we would not, and we've talked to the March JPA who would be handling that transfer, and they are in agreement with this entire approach, and we believe we can get it accomplished in much shorter time. So in summary, the agreement resolves the cost of the intertie water supply capacity. Number 2, participation in the sewer crossing at a cost up to $615,000, and resolves the Paris Valley Pipeline turnout condition. So we have on the line representing Hillwood. I'm not going to list everyone, but I'll list the primary player that we've been dealing with, which is Kathy Hoffer. She's Vice President of Hillwood. And if we do get some questions, I would ask that Kathy introduce the other members that are representing Hillwood. This concludes my presentation on this item, and I'm happy to discuss any details of the agreement.
Thank you, Derek. This is a more complex project, so a more complicated report. There are a lot of moving pieces. It's been a lot of work with the developers and with March JPA, and with our engineering development team has done a great job to try and accommodate our needs with the developers' needs and March JPA's needs. So this has not been an easy one, but we're excited to have it to this point where our board has an opportunity to approve it. So with that, I will turn it over to the board to ask questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, but I move to approve. Motion stands.
We wanted to hear from the developers last time, and they were not there, so I would like to hear if they have to share something.
Okay.
So I would like to call on, and I actually don't have the Zoom list in front of me, but I'm calling on the main person I've been dealing with, Kathy Hoffer.
Kathy's on there.
So Kathy, if you might be able to introduce any of the members of the team that are online.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for this opportunity. On the call with me is our project manager for the development, Larissa, And we also have Scott Hildebrand from Web Engineering, as well as the project manager for construction out at the site, Bill Crenshaw, with Hillwood Construction Services. And I would certainly like to quickly take this opportunity to thank Western Municipal Water District staff, Derek, Tom, Carl. We've worked very hard on this agreement. That's absolutely true. So thank you for your diligence on that. Thank you, Director and members of the board, for your consideration and support. We certainly appreciate our partnership together on this project, and we are very much looking forward to commencing construction as soon as possible. So thank you again for this time today.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here today. Questions from anybody on the board?
Not a question, but a comment. This kind of public-private partnership is beneficial all around if they are properly structured. I think this one is, or we wouldn't be doing it. It was a struggle to get here, but we are now here, and I think that is very good. I hope it sets a little bit of a precedent for future public-private partnerships. They don't necessarily appear as frequently as you might hope, but when there is an opportunity, it can be really beneficial to all of the parties, and I'm glad to see this one go forward, and I will second the motion.
Thank you. Okay. Before we take that, I'll go ahead and ask for public comment on this item.
I see none.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no further comments from my colleagues, we'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Thank you. Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Yes.
President Dinstead?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, directors, and thank you to Hillwood.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to Hillwood. We're looking forward to getting this started on the right foot. Thank you.
I almost feel like we need
Thank
a little cheer button
Right?
to say, yeah.
We do a wave starting with
Yeah, something like
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely. This one, hopefully behind us now. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to 8F.
All right, item 8F is for the board to consider approval of the job classification plan and salary grades table amendment. So Candy is here to walk us through that. I'll just open it by giving you a little background from my perspective. This is a minor reorganization to meet a couple of important objectives. So this board approved strategic priorities for the agency to follow for the next 3 years. So this effort is to better align the organization to meet those priorities. The other important thing that we had is we had 2 key retirements in our administrative team. So Greg Duker and Cindy Bond both retired this last year, and so we clearly needed to make some changes to accommodate all the staff members in that administrative group and move them around to appropriate areas that meets our strategic objectives and also helps us achieve more efficiencies internally. So with that, I'll turn it over to Candy. The board annually approves this job classification plan at the start of the year. When we make adjustments to it, we bring it back to the board. I'm not adding any headcount, so there's no budget implications. So with that, I'll let Candy run through it for us, and then I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, President Dinstead, board members, staff, and the public that are attending this meeting. I think Craig kind of went over everything that I was going to say, so I will try everything he just said. But I also think it's important to remind the board, since we have at least a very new member, that it is the general manager's job to structure and organize the work and direct the work of the staff throughout the district. And he's authorized to change employees from one classification to another and create a different flow within the organization and create new departments as necessary. But like he said, procedurally, when recommendations are made to the job classifications, we're required to bring these recommendations to the board for approval of the amended job classification and salary grades table. And so on the dais, you have a revised red line handout that updates the job classification plan, which is also outlined, all of the changes are outlined in the board letter. These, as Craig mentioned, the classification changes support the reorganization efforts that were identified during the recent strategic planning efforts. And the proposed reorganization specifically aligns positions and departments, enabling them to achieve the strategic priorities developed for 2022 through 2025, and to really elevate our performance, allowing Western to delivering superior service and resource management for our customers. And again, I know I'm repeating Craig, but it's worth mentioning that there is no increase or request to increase the authorized full-time headcount. So we remain at the authorized approval of 157 full-time equivalency employees. And there's no budget adjustment needed for these recommended changes. And so we're asking the board to approve the amended job classification and salary grades table. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the red line version in front of you.
And you'll notice that some of those classifications are on that table, but they show next to them 0, which means we're keeping that title on, basically on the books, but we don't have anyone in that. So someday we may go back to hiring a person in that position, but right now we don't have anyone in that position. But because we're realigning to meet some very specific goals, and a lot of that is within our customer care area, that we're moving some people around. So we had to create some job classifications to do that. And so that's what this is really about. That's why you see all these, or several job classifications being created. And so we have to create the spot form, the board has to approve that, and that's what the administrative part of what's going on here.
Okay, thank you very much. I also...
Sorry, one more thing, I forgot, apologize. We did run this through the exec committee.
I was getting ready to just chime in on that.
Okay, go ahead and chime in on that.
The executive committee did meet on this, and we had a discussion in regard to that. The executive committee comprised of the president, myself, and the vice president, Director Torres. So we met and conferred on this on a number of other issues and had a lengthy discussion about that, and we were in agreement and moved that forward for consideration of the full board in support of the general manager's objectives and of the objectives of our strategic plan. So with that, Madam Secretary, is there any public comments on this item?
I see none.
Thank you. Any comments from members of the board?
No, but I move to approve.
I have a question.
Okay. Yes. Question.
So I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding some of this. So,
It's a lot, it's a lot.
and I'm glad to hear that you met as an executive committee, because I think we talked about that a month or so ago, and so I'm glad to hear that occurred. It's on really the second page of the staff letter, reclassifications. So it has engineering technician 2, proposed classification title is customer experience representative 2, and then the one right below that, I basically have the same question for both of these. Water resource specialist 3, going to senior customer experience representative. So are those positions actually like, is the engineering one being moved out of engineering and into a whole different department?
But you're
Yes.
not getting rid of engineering technician.
No.
It's a person that is
that's-
being moved, not the title.
Oh,
Am I correct on that?
That's a person being moved. So that we're taking we're taking a person that has a group of responsibilities, one out of water resources and one out of engineering, because a lot of their responsibilities are in dealing with the public. In the case of the water resources side, it's all about our water conservation programs, our education programs, so it's very, very public facing.
Okay.
And the other one that's coming out of engineering is on the development services side, and that is kind of our point of contact for the developers that come in the door and want to begin the development services program. I see a need to basically to develop a permanent point of contact for those developers so that they have one go-to person. So it's very much a communications and a customer service program. So both of those people are going to be moved into this new group. So no salary adjustments, but that activity is being taken out of water resources and out of development services, moved into this group. But they're going to work very, very closely with all the rest of the development services group. So it's not, you know, Derek asked me, well, you're taking one of my development services people away, what do I do? Well, we're renaming them into a new group, but their whole job is going to be working on development services, but we're prioritizing customer care.
Okay, so it's better reflective of what their job
What they're actually doing
But that
and what they're
person is
performing.
actually-
Right.
Okay.
So there still
Right.
will be an executive assistant position, right? And an
So on executive assistant, there will still be executive assistants.
assistants, right?
But we're creating an office manager because the office
Person's
manager
doing-
is going to take over some of the responsibilities of what Cindy Bone was doing. So new people are going to be
And the
reporting
retirements.
to the office manager, and I want to reclassify Sonia Zeit into that position, so promote her into office manager. So we have to create the office manager position, and then I'm allowed to reclass that person into that position. It's a promotion. And then I have a choice of whether I want to advertise that position or just promote someone into that position. So I'm promoting her into that position.
Okay. All right, that helps clarify it. And then I appreciated your explanation of the zeros and what that means. So this is, the red line sheet is a lot of information. So just trying to grasp it. So thank you. I appreciate the answers to the questions, and yeah, happy to support.
Thank you. I did want to, because it helped me, Laura, I broke it down like in my head a few times. There are 8 new positions, right? 2 of which, there are 2 positions that are like completely going away, right? Admin services manager. Is that correct, from what I'm reading?
They're gonna stay on the list, but we're not gonna fill those positions.
Oh, so, okay, because they had a red line on, across them.
Admin services
Good
manager
question.
is
There will be a modified list, because by mistake, those are showed,
well, in the specific question about the administrative services manager, we're converting that to an office manager.
Right.
So there will not be an administrative services
And that's
manager.
what
In other words, that's why it's crossed out.
And so
You
what
are
about
correct.
The name is
strategic
changed.
communications supervisor?
The
Is that also
strategic
going away
communications supervisor
completely?
is going away because it will be a strategic communications manager.
Man, okay, and so 2 of which are essentially going away.
Right.
All of these seem to be promotions except the engineering technician going to customer?
That's lateral.
That's lateral, right? That's what and same with water resource?
Lateral.
Okay. And then there are 3 significant promotions, and I guess you alluded to it, Craig, so just because we all know that in my division, my ratepayers are going to wonder, right after a rate increase, everybody's getting big salary bumps, which we've said a few times, there is no budget increase, but why not choose to do a competitive recruitment in these cases, just based on the importance of these positions, is my question.
well, I have the choice of whether to do a competitive recruitment or to promote someone.
Right.
So in cases where there is one specific person that's qualified for this, I'm giving a promotion. There are several jobs on here that will be opened up internally first for competition, because there potentially could be several people that would be interested in those positions that would be qualified for those positions. So we'll go through that process. If we don't have anyone, the way we do recruitments, we've been doing this for several years now, is we first open it up internally. We accept applications for a specific period of time. If we don't get applications of qualified employees, then we open up to the outside. I fully expect that this will all stay internally. I think we have very good people that are ready for an opportunity to move up in the organization, and so we'll give them that opportunity to compete for it.
Well, and Director Torres, if you recall some of the conversation that we had during committee meeting too, is that it was more directly aligned with the actual work that they're already performing and
Right.
not being recognized for. So
No, and that was going to be my subsequent comment is I appreciate internal movement, whether that's lateral, never really appreciate going down, but lateral or moving up, only because it shows those employees that are looking to have a trajectory here, that there is growth and there's possibility for growth. And I think that that's important. And mostly for me, it's, I was in the executive committee when we heard all this, and these all look good and everyone is qualified for what they're going for. I just want, for transparency's sake, to, understand your thought process. And like I said, I agree that whenever we're able to recruit from the family, we recruit from the family. So that was just I just wanted it out there because I will be the one bombarded with questions. So
Andy has sent me a message that she wants it clarified that they're not promotions, they are straight reclassifications.
Right.
So.
That's another good point, because in a reclassification, a change in salary is often appropriate, right? If you're doing the work of a different I just went through one. I went through two, so I understand that sometimes it's appropriate, and you're not being promoted, but just because I guess it's a new position, it looks like a promotion. But that's a really good point. Thanks, Tim.
I would echo your philosophy on internal recruitment. We've been pushing really hard internally since I've been the general manager here, that we want to prepare everyone in this organization to move up when there's an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Our preference is that Candy doesn't necessarily appreciate the additional work, but we've done this many times now, mm-hmm. where a person moves up and then another person moves up, and we have to recruit 4 or 5 times to get down to where we're bringing someone new into the organization at an entry-level position, and that's what we like to do. Yeah. And so we do that whenever possible. We're not that big of an organization, so sometimes we don't have the skill set to do that. But that is always our objective.
And I think that's one, like I said, there are people starting, we have an internship program. We want them to, when they get here, to say, hey, there is a home for me here in the long term. And that only happens when they're watching their colleagues grow. Mm-hmm. So I think that's great. Thank you.
Just one follow-up.
Sure.
So it was mentioned 8, Director Torres, I think you said 8 new positions.
Classifications.
Classifications.
They're classifications, okay. Right. There's no change.
And there
in the
are 2
actual
that
numbers.
we'll never see again, I guess.
They're being shelved.
Don't redline my stuff.
I always have the opportunity to come back to the board in future years and add those back in if we see that there's a need for that.
They're being shelved.
We don't need that right now.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay.
Second?
Did we have a motion?
I did.
Director Fazio made a motion.
Oh, okay.
We're just getting ahead of the system, so we're motioning prior to conversation being completed, so I'm just catching up, but I'm good.
Okay. And did I ask for public comment on this?
You did not. Oh, no, you did.
I was going to say, okay. Just making a clarification, we got that.
Yeah, no, and I'm
All
ready
right.
to go.
Okay, perfect. So we have a motion to approve and a second. Go ahead and call for the vote, please.
Thank you. Director Roten?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Rizvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Yes.
President Dinstead?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our action agenda for the Facilities Authority.
All right, item 9A is to consider adoption of Resolution 21, establishing regular meeting dates for the Western Municipal Water District Facilities Authority. We'll turn this over to Anna.
I actually do not see Anna.
I will turn this over to Rod.
So I'll support Anna on this one. So members of the board, this item is really a request coming to us from Bond Counsel with Best and Krieger. And the Facilities Authority, we know, is the one that actually stands up and issues the external debt. And so to the credit agencies, to everybody else that invests, they know who the Facilities Authority is. And so what Bond Counsel is saying is you need to have regularly scheduled meetings of the Facilities Authority. And a quick way to do that is to just make the regularly scheduled Western board meetings also the regularly scheduled meetings for the Facilities Authority. If we don't produce an agenda, then we won't have a meeting. So, but Bond Counsel is saying, just get that placeholder in there to be on the safe side. And again, a lot has to do with transparency and reporting obligations that we have that Anna conducts on our behalf. So that's what this is about.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and ask for public comment. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on this item?
I see no request to speak.
Okay, bring it up to the dais for any comments, questions?
Real quickly, I'd like to verify that there is no real increased cost in taking this action. Directors won't get paid twice for a dual meeting.
No.
I mean, there may be some very slight paperwork costs involved, but this is not something that is going to create additional staff positions or additional pay for directors or staff. And I think it's important that the public understand that, because there are some agencies out there that pay their elected or appointed officials.
Per meeting.
Yeah, well, yeah, per meeting of each agency.
Right.
So,
So if they have the fire
Yeah.
authority or the library authority
Yeah.
or a variety of different ones, they get paid a
yeah,
stipend for
or,
each
or,
one
you know,
of
the
those.
housing authority
We
for
do
a city.
not. Yes.
You get paid as council member and as a member of the housing authority in some cities sometimes. That's not the case here, and I think that's important.
I need to write my councilwoman.
Right. And that's under the water code for the state of California. We do
Right.
not receive additional compensation because a meeting is titled a different way. It is a singular stipend for a singular day, no matter how meetings we have in that singular day.
Yep. And with that, I will move approval.
Second.
Okay? I have any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Thank you for your patience. Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risvi?
Yes.
Director Gardner?
Aye.
Director Torres?
Yes.
President Dinstead?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our report section of the agenda this morning. I think we're almost done. Because Mike's got to go. Moving on to our report section, General Counsel.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, included in your agenda packet is a letter that I provided to you as board members in response to an allegation that was made at the second meeting in January this last year. At the January 5th board meeting, the board conducted its annual rotation and selection of board officers. And as part of that process, the board invoked a provision in the district's policies that allow for a waiver of the otherwise automatic rotation, and instead decided to select its existing slate of officers to continue in 2022. As part of that discussion, there was quite a bit of discussion about the need for consistency and maintaining stability after about 18 months of some change on the board and within the district. At the subsequent meeting, there was a member of the public who commented that the vote may have been affected by racial discrimination. As my letter indicates, it's my legal opinion that the selection was not affected by any racial discrimination, but instead was based on legitimate, non-discriminatory reasons. And so that's what the letter concludes, and so therefore, in my opinion, there's no need for any further investigation. I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the board? Okay, moving on to General Manager report.
All right, thank you very much. I've got several reports. I'm going to kick off with Ryan Shaw, is going to give us a water supply update. Ryan?
Thanks, Greg. Good morning, everybody. President Instead, directors, and members of the public. Just a quick update on water supply. Probably nothing you haven't heard already. We're always a couple weeks behind here, but yes, we are still in a drought, unfortunately. Next slide, please. The governor and state's emergency status is still in place, along with recently approved back in January regulations, such as don't water your driveway, for example. Those are still in place. We did get a bit of good news last month, as you heard. State water project allocation bumped up from 0 to 15%, which is really good news for our region, especially for Metropolitan's region and everybody else that buys water from them. Unfortunately, it was a dry January and so far been a fairly dry February. So fingers crossed that rain comes, but we are at 15% and hoping for a little bit more. That 15% allocation is a fairly substantial deal from Metropolitan's perspective and our perspective. With this third bullet here, it likely means we will not need to go to human health and safety deliveries. If you recall, this was about just under 300,000 acre feet from a Metropolitan perspective that they were to ask for from the state. Fortunately, as of now, with this 15% bump in the allocation, as of today, we still don't need to ask for that. So again, fingers crossed, it continues to rain a little bit here and there. Next slide. So locally, as you know, it hasn't rained that much. Our Seven Oaks and Prado Dam, just under 500 acre feet in both of those reservoirs. Since the last time we met, gave this update, they have discharged quite a bit down to Orange County. So relatively low numbers for Seven Oaks and Prado Dam, but again, hopefully we get some rain and can fill up those reservoirs. Next slide. All right, this is a little bit outdated, I apologize. So you see 105% on the Colorado River Basin snowpack. It's probably closer to about 100 as of today. As I mentioned, January was very dry, not only in California, but all of the West. So you see we've got the yellow line that says 9.8 inches, and you can see kind of a flat line over the last month or two. Still looking pretty good overall. But again, we need some more rain and some more snow. Next slide. So on the Colorado River, I think you guys have seen this slide a few times now. The good news is, as of now, the latest projection from USBR for this year will keep us above the 1,050 foot elevation level at Lake Mead, which is a trigger point for conservation activities that will need to take place. It's based on a calendar year. So at the end of the year, we think we're still going to be above what we call level 2 shortage. However, the projection going forward for 2023 is we'll drop down below that. And what that means for us is Metropolitan is going to have to put into play some additional conservation activities, working with the other Colorado River Basin states, Arizona, Nevada, and others, to make sure that we manage through this continued drought. Next slide. So same thing on the Northern Sierra. It says 90% here, but it's probably closer to 80%. And same story as along the Colorado River. We're still looking really good. But as you can see, leveling out there in the yellow line, 16.8 inches up in the Sierra snowpacks. Not looking good going forward here, but still starting at a good place. Next slide. Wanted to share this one with you. It's again with the Sierra snowpack, but this is the 8-station index, and this is precipitation. Just wanted to share this slide. You can see last year compared to this year. Again, we're still starting at a great point thanks to the December rains and snow. But as you can see, we've leveled out quite a bit, and we're approaching that white average white line. So again, hopefully we get some rain and snow and we can continue going forward. But compared to last year, we're still looking pretty good. Next slide. So with that bump in the state water project allocation from 0 to 15%, you see that yellow bar in the middle. We're just under 300,000 acre feet from Metropolitan's perspective. If you recall, that was below 100,000 acre feet. So we were planning, Met was planning to pull from storage quite a bit more than they are now. The 1.76 million acre feet is probably on the high end. I anticipate that we won't see that much demand in this current year, so they won't probably have to pull that much from storage. But the good news is we have a whole lot of storage thanks to investments from all of the metropolitan member agencies. Next slide. So you saw this last month. Credit to Sarah and her staff. We continue to organize ourselves in the Inland Empire. All of our member agencies and neighboring agencies, we're doing our best to message and communicate collectively, which can be hard sometimes with water districts because we all have our own different water supplies and demands. But Sarah's done a great job, her and her team, on keeping us aligned as best we can, including Metropolitan Water District messaging. And as of today, we're still in our Step It Up phase, if you will, for outreach and communication efforts. Hopefully we don't have to go beyond that, but that's where we are as of today. Next slide. As you might expect, we'll continue to track hydrology. And this board approved last month our new water shortage contingency plan, which put us into our stage 2. No financial impact to our customers, but it does continue to promote conservation and water use efficiency measures, support ongoing water supply and drought outreach. That's going to continue. Like I mentioned, Sarah's team is doing a fantastic job on that. You may have seen a letter from WRCOG. Craig and others were able to work with them to put a letter to Metropolitan Water District encouraging statewide and local storage. And Craig has been a leader on this effort, trying to get Metropolitan and the state to utilize some of the existing surplus funds from the state to invest in water storage up and down the state. So hopefully we can see some traction there. And then hopefully we don't have to, but of course we're prepared to go into a higher stage if and when the drought gets worse. But we won't do anything until we come back to the board for approval via resolution. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Ryan. I have a couple more comments on that, unless there's questions about what Ryan presented. Okay, so yeah, Ryan and his team do a great job of tracking all this, and it's interesting how staff reacts to these things. So you hear Ryan say things like, "Hey, this is great. We got a 15% allocation." So we're damaged in a little way because 15% allocation is horrible. It's an embarrassment to the state. And what he's saying is that we averted a 0% allocation. We got out of that. When he's talking health and safety water, I just want to put this in context for the board and for any of the public that's watching, because I think the public really doesn't understand what's going on. But Metropolitan made an application to the state if we stayed in a 0% allocation for human health and safety water. What does that mean? That means that certain areas in the Met family, some of these water districts, we're going to get zero water, and they do not have an alternative source of water. So Metropolitan has to apply to the state to get water so they can survive. Can you imagine Southern California being put in a position where certain water districts had to survive? That water could only be used for indoor use, no outdoor irrigation, and it also, you have the authority to turn off water to industrial and commercial customers. Can you imagine the impacts to the economy? So we say it like, woo, this is great, we got 15% because it's going to take us out of that need. But we don't know what the rest of the year is going to be like. We may be right back there again next year. So one of his bullets said we're going to encourage the state to do more. I think encourage is probably not where we are. I mean, we're gonna demand. You're gonna see a significant movement amongst water agencies across the state to demand that the state reprioritize what they're doing with the statewide water system. So, to me, it's almost like a battle cry. I'm getting a lot of traction with the Met family. I'm getting a lot of traction with agriculture entities in the Central Valley, the desert communities. So, this is something that we need all of our political support, and we need to make it we need to raise the awareness, because I don't think the public has any idea that this state was basically out of water with a zero allocation after 2 dry years. Remember, we entered this, and Brian said this, I've said this, we entered this with the most storage we've ever had, 3.2 million acre feet of storage locally. And in 2 years, we've blown through that. And the state has, so, it's going to be a big push. Happy to answer questions on that one. Then I have a couple other things. Anything on that before I move on?
Not a question, but this is a little out of order, but I want to be sure and make the comment while Ryan's still listening. I was asked by Supervisor Spiegel's office to give a presentation on water supply and what is happening in the way of conservation efforts and those sorts of things to the High Grove Municipal Advisory Committee. And Ryan, along with Sarah's staff, particularly Michelle Adams, but I think others as well, put together a presentation somewhat similar to what we just saw, but with some different detail. And Craig's exactly right, that the people, the residents have no idea what's happening. They don't really understand the drought. They know that it's been kind of dry, but water still comes out of the tap when they turn it on. They did not understand at all that there are some agencies that only have one source of water available to them and what that means. They did not understand the human health and safety concept that could shut down industry and that it would shut down any outdoor water use. I would encourage all of us, as we have an opportunity, to make those kinds of presentations. And I really want to thank our staff for what they put together for me. I got a number of comments, including from Supervisor Spiegel and her staff, that I actually sounded like I knew what I was talking about. And that was because I was so well prepared by our staff, and I had a great presentation. And I had both Ryan and Michelle on the line in the call to call on if I needed to. And fortunately, I didn't much. Ryan got to say hello, and Michelle got to expand on one point. But it was important, and our staff just did an outstanding job. So thank you.
Yeah, I have two. Now, Mike just made me think of one. So the presentation that you gave, was it a PowerPoint? Or was it just you had the information, you gave it off the top of your head?
It was a PowerPoint, which was provided to the supervisor's staff ahead of time, and they ran it.
Okay.
You know, kind of like ours, you know, next slide, next slide.
Yes. So can we get that as board members? Because I think sometimes there are organized places to present that, and then other times you run into someone at an event or whatever and start talking about water. By the way, I've now been called a water nerd, but.
That's the highest compliment you could achieve.
Yeah, I'm like, thank you. But anyway, I would love to have that, so I can help to have that
Yeah,
little
I
bit
think,
longer
yeah,
than
I
an
think that would
elevator
be
speech.
useful. It is already slightly dated. Some of
Right.
the slides in the presentation here had more recent information than what I had at the time I made that presentation. And makes things look less good.
And I'm hearing
No,
that's
and
an
I
outdated
understand
term,
that.
too. It's a slide deck we want, right?
Slide deck?
Okay.
Okay, whatever it is. My second question was the 15% allocation. And frankly, Ryan, I like the way that you presented because it didn't feel so heavy as it really is. And I know we need to get the message across to, you know, the water users in the region about how serious it really is. But it took away a little bit of my anxiety, you know, sitting up here. So I kind of liked how he presented that. But what does the 15% allocation mean to Western?
All right, so what time is it? So the 15% allocation is what the state water project has to distribute. So there's 22 state water contractors.
Okay.
Metropolitan is one of those contractors. San Bernardino Valley is another contractor in our area. So they get 15% of their overall water right to the state project. So in Metropolitan's case, they have 2 million acre feet of rights on the state project.
Normally.
Normally, under 100% allocation, they
Okay.
would get 2 million acre feet. So they're going to get 15% of that. So that was that yellow-green bar that Ryan showed at about 300,000 acre feet. That is their state water allocation at 15%. So we normally could get 2 million. At zero, we got zero. At 15%, we get a little under 300,000 acre feet. And then that same 15% is for all the other state contractors. So Valley District normally has the right to 100,000 acre feet, so they're going to get 15% of that. So they'll get 15,000 acre feet of state contract water that they then distribute to their member agencies and put in the ground for groundwater replenishment. But at 15%, they'll have no water for groundwater replenishment.
So Met is getting 300,000 acre feet to distribute across all of their member agencies.
To the whole Met family.
Okay.
Now, to complicate the story, they also have 1 million acre feet coming from the Colorado River side of their system. So they blend all of that depending on their plumbing. So they have actually 1.3 million acre feet of imported water coming into their system. And that'll be shared amongst all the member agencies.
Okay. I'm sorry, how much did you say from Colorado?
1.3 million total of imported water.
Oh, 1 million from, okay.
Million from Colorado, 300,000 from the state.
Okay, 1.3 million total. And the million from Colorado is even with the dire straits that it's in right now?
Yes, because Metropolitan has been storing water in Lake Mead for a long time in what they call their ICS account. So when there's been wet years, they basically turn off the faucet to Lake Mead and take additional state water project, and they leave their water behind in Lake Mead, and that goes into a storage account. And so that account is very high right now. So even though there's shortages in Lake Mead, they can still get their full 1 million acre feet. Now, what Ryan was talking about is when that Lake Mead level dips below 1050, that's that line that we're kind of wavering along.
Right.
Then things change, and there's other conservation measures that go into place, and Metropolitan has to participate in other conservation members. But we still have this block of water to all of the Met family's benefit that's sitting in there.
Okay.
So we'll continue to get that.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay, other questions?
Yes. So the 15% allocation, what are the chances it can be changed? Or there's a commitment that it's not going to be changed for the whole year?
So the way the state does this is they start in December with an initial allocation, then they'll adjust it throughout the year until April or May.
Okay.
And then in April and May, they'll give the final allocation for the summer.
Okay.
And then next December, they'll come up with a new one. Last year was the first year that I'm aware of that it ever went down. So it was at 10% in the winter and the spring, and then it went to 5% for the summer. I'm guessing that they set 15% conservatively because they never want to go down. Because agencies start planning for their summer water use based on that 10%, and then if it changes to 5%, they're in a bad way potentially. So I think the 15% is probably very conservative, but that was also not really set thinking it would never rain again the rest of the year. Luckily, yesterday was probably a good day statewide. We got water. You see the snow lower on the mountains today. You know, I haven't seen the numbers. I have my fingers crossed that hit the whole state, which is good, which bolsters the 15% to stay in place. But it can change.
It can change. Okay. All right. So, all right, yeah. Thank you.
It rained hard.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay.
I do see Ryan's hand up.
He knows all this stuff. Why is he asking me a question?
I was going to say a lot of what Craig just said, but Director Roten, you asked a question that prompted me to raise my hand. Metropolitan has what they call their water supply allocation plan. So if and when they really are running out of water, they will initiate water cuts, essentially, allocating water to all of our member agencies. That's not in play right now. As Craig mentioned, we're doing pretty good. But that would be the next big step if the drought continues and water supplies go down, that would impact Western and our customers directly.
Yeah, good addition, Ryan. Thank you. Okay, I have a couple more things. So today is potentially a shut-off day. We've been talking about this for months and months and months, that eventually we have to get back to our collections process. So we're allowed to do this. The board authorized us to do this. So today is a shut-off day. Now, I want to commend our customer service team because they have taken this seriously. So Kevin, Teresa, and her entire team, they have been sending out emails, hard mail. This week was FedEx mails to anyone who is in alignment for a shutoff because they haven't been paying their bill. And we broke into phone calls, calling everybody. So everybody knows that they potentially are going to be shut off. So we FedExed 149 customers that were in alignment for a shutoff today. We've called as many of those customers as we can get a hold of. The really good news is that we called 149. Right now, it's looking like we still have about 40 that have not responded, which is a huge drop. Now, you may say, how unusual is this? So it wouldn't be unusual to have 50 people, 50 customers that would normally be, without coronavirus or anything else, would be on a shut-off list for a day. So we've really kind of knocked it down to a fairly normal day. The great news also is that our staff has organized payment programs. So we don't say you have to pay your whole bill. You just need to get into some sort of payment program so we know you're participating. So a lot of those people are in payment programs. We also, and the board asks this regularly, hey, what's happening with our Ratepayer assistance program? And we keep telling you no one's participating. We probably had the biggest month we've ever had since we started that.
Great.
So we sent out about $6,000 in assistance credits for people. So that's good news. So they're finally, with the last minute, they're paying attention and they're participating. So staff will be working late tonight because we anticipate that we're going to get phone calls and people that are in a panic later tonight when they get home from work or wherever they are. And they're, we want to pay our bill at the last second here. And so we're preparing for that rush coming this evening.
Greg, could some of these people be a chance that they've moved from they were renters, if they've moved or something, or no? They're current customers?
Well, there's always that possibility, and we do always have a challenge with renters.
Okay.
And we also have people that are selling their house, and they are just trying to abandon their bills, so we'll place a lien on the property so that we can recover that money. So it's all of the above.
Okay.
Craig, are there any actual shut-offs occurring today?
Yes.
Potentially? Okay.
Yes.
No, that's
That's why
what I
we'll get a
thought.
rush of phone calls
Right,
tonight.
well, yeah, you come home and you got no water, and you say, well, I want my water back.
Yeah.
I gotta pay.
Yeah.
So,
Or
okay.
enter into a payment program.
Yes, yeah.
Is there anything that we can do to,
I think I'm
Boost the
telling you
message?
this because you may get phone calls.
okay,
And I think what you can do is to encourage people to call our customer service department and allow them to work with the customer. We don't want anybody shut off.
Well-
That's our last resort. And I know the board has supported that we don't want that. We want them to pay, and we want them to take advantage of the funding opportunities that are out there. So the best thing they can do is direct them to our customer service, and we'll see what works best for each customer.
well, thank you. And while my heart is hurting for 40 people right now, I do want to say it's been shy of a month of 2 years that we've had this moratorium, and I think that's very telling of our agency. So I appreciate all your hard work and Kevin's team for all their hard work in trying to get everybody taken care of, so.
Yep. We had some questions about Flume Devices, so whether we're going to offer Flume Devices. So we opened up that program, so those are available. So we launched, you get an instant rebate of $124. It actually, end user cost is about $9 to a customer if they want to get this. We have a limited number. We may have to expand the program. There was a lot of interest in the program immediately. And it's a data device. So it straps to your meter. You have a rubber band and you can put it on your meter. It actually takes the readings of the meter and then can send you alerts, and you can get all sorts of data of your daily use. So that's out there. Interesting tool for our customers. We'll see how that all works out. In front of you, a couple things. Strategic priorities. You've got a printout. This is a draft copy, so we printed a few for staff to review and for the board. So you've got that. Take a look at it. If you have questions, give me a call. You also have the WRCOG letter that we drafted for WRCOG to send to Met. That letter is, you're going to see a lot more of this. That letter is saying, hey, Met, please focus on big water and fixing storage and conveyance. So very appreciative of Kurt Wilson and WRCOG continuing that message. And I have talked to Adele from Metropolitan, and he appreciated the letter, and we were very careful to say this isn't anything negative. We're just trying to support your efforts, Adele, statewide, to improve the state's storage and conveyance system. And then for any directors that are participating in the walking challenge that was thrown down on the board, Metropolitan sent out a press release about their wildflower trail that you can walk at Diamond Valley. So participate in that if you're trying to beat your fellow board members in your walking challenge. That's all I have.
I'm 15 days in, and I can tell you I haven't walked.
Oh, no.
I mean, I just walked to the bathroom and back, but.
Oh, no. Well, you still have time. You still have time. Okay, that is your end of your update. Are you sure? We're going to have to start putting time limit on you.
I'm done.
It is shut-off day and flume day.
Flume Day.
Yes.
So on the Flume device, because I know we're in the process of doing the smart meter conversion. So are the people that are ordering Flumes people that don't necessarily have the smart meter?
No.
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 Same.
We've had this discussion internally because we feel like the smart meters will give you a lot of the same data that you can get out of a Flume. Flume will give you potentially more data and will break it down more ways. I don't know whether customers care about it broken down anymore. What we really like is for them to recognize their water usage and track it some way. So whatever they use is important because we want end user customers to be able to say halfway through their month that they're tracking perfectly with their water budget. And if they're tracking over their water budget, we hope they set their Flume to give them an alarm that says, hey, ratchet back a little bit, we want you to stay within budget, because ultimately with the portal, we'll be able to do that with the smart meters. So that's all part of this customer service program that I'm creating. Ultimately, we'll have an outreach arm that takes that data and proactively reaches out to customers to let them know how their water use is going. So you can do it with a Flume, but we're going to be able to do it with our system also.
And does their information, if they're using the Flume, does that information get transferred to Western? It doesn't, it's just for them, okay.
And it won't be used for meter reads. So that is a potential discrepancy, and you could hear from a customer that says, Flume said this, your water bill said this, I'm not going to pay you because they're different. We're very clear that even when they get their Flume device, they acknowledge that the water meter is the device that's the cash register, is the true register.
Is there the word came out of my head. Is there some sort of like QA/QC that's done, like, hey, why are all our Flumes? Like, does that make sense? I lost the word in my head.
How are we tracking who takes them?
No, what I'm saying is, so let's say we have several Flumes that keep measuring under our use. Is there some sort of adjustment that we're making on our meters to?
No, it's a third-party device. We're very clear with a disclaimer that it will not be used because it actually records electronic pulses from our meter. It takes information from our meter. We're not familiar with how Flume actually captures that data. It's a separate device. It's only designed as an information device, but our AMI meter will be the device of record. And if there is a difference, we will encourage the customer to actually go and speak with Flume directly.
Oh, no, okay.
It's a battery-operated device. It could, it could fail. So we're not necessarily promoting this product. We're saying, hey, it's available. You can try it. This is a good tool, but much like a rebate for a toilet, if the toilet leaks, it's the customer's responsibility, not ours.
And that does make sense, and I'm glad that we have those waivers in place. But what I'm saying is, what is the word just totally escapes me, but I guess what systems do we have in place to oh my gosh. Calibrate, that's the, yes.
So we routinely calibrate.
Can we do the wave now for Rod?
Our operations team routinely calibrates our meters, so.
I would expect that we will get some phone calls where a customer says that consistently the Flume reports less water usage than we're billing them for. And in that case, I hope they call us. Because then that gives us the opportunity to go out and check their meter, because meters break.
Yeah, of course.
For sure, that's why we're replacing them, right? And we'll replace their meter and give them a new meter. We can calibrate the meters, we can diagnose the meter right there on site. So we fully expect that to happen.
Yeah. Thank you. Tim read my mind.
All right, moving on to director's reports. SAPA.
SAPA met on the 15th. They took two actions. One is to look for a new external auditor a year early because their current auditor, Tiemann, Ramirez and Smith, is reorganizing and won't be taking on any new audit contracts. So it will be someone other than them. And of more significance to us, they approved $5 million in Proposition 1, disadvantaged community grant set-aside funding, two of them close to us. Box Springs Mutual Water Agency is going to get $1,590,000 for replacing two small reservoirs with one larger one. Their two small ones no longer meet requirements for large water storage tanks. That will pay, and there's some well improvements involved in that as well. That pays 100% of the cost of that project. And City of Colton is going to get $885,000 toward a new well, and the estimated cost on the new well is $4,973,000. But it's particularly important because Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, the San Bernardino County Hospital, is served by its own well, which has failed. And Colton's water utility needs this new well to serve that load over the summer. So it's a big deal for them. And that was it for softball.
Thank you very much. For the Met update, there has been some discussion about going back to in-person meetings, which we're kind of looking forward to. So that discussion is happening up there at Met. Budget workshops are getting ready to happen, so there's going to be some significant discussion over the budget at Metropolitan and how that's going to all shake out. I'm sure I'm going to have lots of conversations with staff here and what that plays out for Western. And then one item of interest I wanted to point out on your summary in front of you is the fact that the board authorized the general manager to enter into an agreement with the state water contractors pursuing water transfers with Sacramento Valley, so not to exceed $500,000. So we'll see if those water transfers are an option or not. And I believe all of the money was returned last year. Is that correct?
It's an action to allow them to go and negotiate.
And negotiate.
It gives them authority to go negotiate. Now, whether they negotiate or not, last year they didn't need to negotiate, but this year.
Who
we'll
knows?
see. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what the future brings. So more to come on all of that. Okay, Chino Basin.
Water Master meets next week.
Thank you. CDA.
We had a nice short meeting earlier this month. We approved the airport plume project as well as the staff's COLA adjustment, COLA for staff. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. RCRA.
We meet next week.
Okay. And WRCOG, obviously, the big news of the day was the fact that we authorized as an executive board to send a letter off to Metropolitan encouraging the investment of statewide water storage and conveyance, which was signed by the executive director and put on letterhead with all of the agency weight behind it. So they need to understand and hear the Inland Empire. So look forward to continuing forward with those messages and what it means for future growth and development here for the Inland Empire region. So more to come on that. And then, of course, we're still heavily involved in a lot of closed session because of litigation that exists in relation to the HERO program and some of the bankruptcy filings that have been issued by the WCE, by the HERO program, by a couple of other actions, and some bad actor contractors. So I think we were in closed session for like 2.5 hours. So, yeah, thrill of my life. Okay, moving on to Sarah.
So we are going to meet next month. This month's meeting was canceled.
Okay, thank you very much. Director's comments. I will start to my left. Director Rizvi, any comments today?
No comments, just want to thank the staff again. Every time we get the package, we read through it. I always appreciate the hard work that goes into it. Like, there are things that I'm reading and I was like, oh, it's complicated, and I'm thinking the amount of hours they put in. So I really appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Roughton?
Yes, I would echo that sentiment for staff and the work that goes into, especially when we see, and always, but especially when we see an agenda like this with so many different items. And I know there's also, even in the committee meetings, that a lot of that gets prepared and presented and then maybe adjusted a little bit for the board meeting. So it's much, much appreciated. And I just wanted to share one quick thing. I was invited by Herb Community Services District to attend the opening of what is called the Desi House, as in Lucy and Desi. And it's a home that was originally in Corona that was moved, don't quote me on the dates, I want to say it was moved in the 80s over into Eastvale. And Herb Community Services District provides parks to the city of Eastvale. And they have completely renovated and redone this Desi House into a beautiful event center. And I bring it up, first of all, because it was just amazing, but secondly, it's something that we can maybe keep in mind for a joint or regional meeting of some sort that could be held there at some point in time. It's really hard to describe. It's probably on their website, but they had a wonderful ribbon cutting and then did tours of the home, and it was very well done. And I guess it was a long time coming. I think they said 2015 was when they started, acquiring it and figuring out what they were going to do with it. So kudos to them, and I appreciated being included there that day. So just wanted to let you all know about it in case you have any events coming up that you might want. Perfect for small weddings. And I say small because it's literally surrounded by residential. And so they're working some of that out with those neighbors. They had a soft opening for them the day before to show them the facility, and they've offered it to the homeowners association to use for a meeting place, and that made people happy. And they're going to have noise restrictions and things like that. So they're really taking a lot of thought into how they're going to operate it. But it is, it's lovely. Lovely. So.
It's safe to say that you had a ball at the...
Here it comes.
Yes, I guess you could say that.
Sorry.
Oh, geez.
I'm actually impressed how well that happened.
That's good, Mike.
Ay. Okay, let's finish off. Director Gardner, any comments today?
I think I'm done.
Thank you. And thanks for the memories. Okay. Director Torres.
No comments, aside from a huge thank you to the communications team on the redistricting. I mentioned before, I couldn't open my phone without knowing that we were going to have some type of a hearing, which is great, which of course is great. And then again, to Kevin's team for their outreach on shut-off day. And I really hope that it ends up a little better than what we were given. It's still great, but... and then I just have to say, go LA. 3.
Okay, and I just want to echo those comments from all my colleagues. And the redistricting, this went really well for us. I'm so glad that we were able to preserve everything that we wanted to and take care of stuff, and it was a very easy and transparent process. So communication did a fantastic job of outreach and letting the board know what the options were, and thank you to BB&K for providing all of the data and the backup for all of those, and it really made it a very smooth process. So thank goodness we only have to go through this once every 10 years. So kudos to everyone for doing that. And with that, I will move into requests for future agenda items. If there's anyone that has any future requests for agenda items, I know that we've had a couple in the past that staff are continuing to work on to do presentations on. Anything additional at this time? Okay, seeing none. Informational items are there for your leisure to review those, and we have a closed session item, legal counsel.
Yes, the board will be going into closed session with regard to conference with legal counsel, one potential item.
Okay, and we have no need for item,
It will only be one of the two that's listed.
okay. Thank you very much. So we will go ahead and move into closed session.
Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Affirmative.
Thank you. We are ready to kick off.
We will call the regular board meeting for Western Municipal Water District back to order. Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Director Roten.
Here.
Director Isvy.
Here.
Director Gardner.
Here.
Director Torres.
Here.
President Denstedt.
I am present, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll have legal counsel make an announcement out of closed session.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, and members of the public at home, the board met in closed session to discuss one of the two items of potential litigation, and there was no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March the 2nd at 9:30 in the morning. And before we adjourn, I was provided with some very sad information in regard to the Western family. And it is with a very heavy heart that we announce a passing of one of our employees.
That's correct.
yesterday.
We're, devastated to learn today about the passing of one of our engineers in our engineering department. Tiberius Russo has not been with us that long, 2.5 years, I believe, but a long relationship with some of our other engineers in the engineering community. So we wish he would have come here sooner. He's been a great team member, and we just loved having him on staff, a very positive force on staff, and we're just so sad that after a long battle with an illness, we lost him yesterday. So I would appreciate for the board to adjourn the meeting in his honor, Tiberius Russo.
And it is with our condolences to our fellow employees, his coworkers, the Western family, and to his family at home. We wish and pray for them for strength during this very difficult time. And we will adjourn this meeting in his honor. Thank you.